Out of 319 million people living in the United States, only 5.2 million are American Indians. That's 1.6% of the population. The people who first inhabited and thrived in the continent were killed, enslaved, and violently shoved off of their land by the Spanish settlers, British colonists, and American government. The pain of ethnocide inflicted upon the American Indians cannot be compensated for. Many tribes have only tens or hundreds of members left and struggle to keep their culture, ancestors, and traditions alive. However, the Jicarilla Apache Nation challenged the treaties set forth by the American government and were the last southwestern tribe to be allocated to a reservation. The Jicarilla Apache people have not stopped fighting for their rights and still perform rituals and traditions hundreds of years old. Around 1525 CE, they migrated from Canada and settled in northern New Mexico and southern Colorado. Their land is bound by 4 rivers, the Rio Grande, the Pecos, the Arkansas, and the Canadian, and the area also includes sacred mountain peaks. The natural landmarks play a huge role in the rituals of the Jicarilla Apaches. For example, a ceremony held 4 days after the birth of a child requires the collection of water from 2 of the rivers. The Rio Grande River and Arkansas are for males, and the Canadian and Pecos for the females. There were also 2 bands of Jicarilla Apache people. The Ojero people lived in the mountains, and the Llanero people lived in the plains, but there was no difference between them in language or culture, and they often intermarried. The Jicarillas lived in teepees and dome-shaped houses with roofs made of leaves and bark called wickiups. The staple for the Jicarilla Apaches was corn. They farmed in the mountains because it was safer, growing beans, squash, wheat, berries, and collected nuts. The men hunted buffalo, deer, elk, and other game. When the Jicarillas planted crops, they would place turkey feathers in each corner of the field because they believed the turkey controls the crop, and every part of the turkey represents a part of the corn. It is also why the whites use the turkey for Thanksgiving and place the turkeys in the middle of the table with fruits and vegetables surrounding it. The Jicarilla Apaches lived peacefully until the Spanish settlers and the missionaries began appearing on their land. Many of the Indians fell sick because they had no immune systems against the diseases carried by the newcomers. However, they learned to coexist and traded their goods with the Spanish and sought alliances near the Spanish missions and pueblos. In fact, Jicarilla means little basket in Spanish, and the name was given to them by the Spaniards because of their knack for crafting beautiful baskets. From 1724 to 1779, the Jicarillas used the help of Spanish soldiers, Ute, and Pueblo tribes to defeat the Comanche, a tribe who ordered the Apaches to give up half their women and children, and then they burned several villages, killing all but 69 men, 2 women, and 3 boys. The Jicarillas fled east, and after the Comanche gave up, the Jicarillas were allowed to return to northern New Mexico. In 1883, the government relocated the Jicarilla Apaches to the Mescalero Indian Reservation, but then, in 1887, many of them left and said they would rather starve than return to that reservation. As the U.S. government became greedier for land and urged more American Indians onto reservations, the Jicarillas became hostile while protecting their land, and they even threatened travelers. In 1851, William Carr Lane, the governor of New Mexico Territory, formed treaties with the Jicarilla and other tribes of New Mexico to peacefully relocate to reservations and farm on new lands. In return, payments would be given to the tribes to reimburse them for the loss of access to their sacred homelands, hunting, and gathering. But, betraying the tribes, the United States government removed the funding for the treaty. On March 30th, 1854, 250 Apaches and Utes ambushed the U.S. Dragoons. The battle lasted 2 to 4 hours, with the Jicarilla using only flintlock rifles and arrows to fight. They killed 22 and wounded another 36 of the 60 Dragoon soldiers, who then retreated. This was known as the Battle of Cieneguilla. Immediately, a mission to pursue the Jicarillas was organized by Lieutenant Colonel Philip St. George Cook. Cook found the Jicarillas, whose leader, Flechas Rayada, offered an agreement for peace in exchange for the horses and guns they had acquired from the battle, but the arrangement was not accepted. On April 8th, Cook fought tribal members at their camp. The Jicarillas fled, evading further pursuit, but many died from the harsh, cold winter. Furthermore, relations with the Spanish were rancorous because many Spanish had captured the Apaches and sold them into slavery. By 1883, the Jicarillas were the only southwestern tribe without a reservation. They appealed for one and sent a delegation to Washington, D.C. February 11, 1887, Grover Cleveland, the President of the United States, signed the order. The reservation did not allow access to the Jicarillas' sacred places like the mountains. Moreover, the land did not bode well with farming, and the tribe members suffered from malnutrition. By 1914, 90% of the tribe had tuberculosis. Nevertheless, the Jicarilla Apaches began sheep ranching. In 1937, the Jicarillas adopted a constitution, and their government, which was made of a representative tribal council of 18 elected members and an executive committee of 5 members chosen by the council. The superintendent is the head of the council, the current one being Sherry Vigil. After World War II, oil and gas developments sprung up on the reservation, and in 1982, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the tribe could tax companies that were drilling for oil and gas on the reservation. This was Marion versus Jicarilla Apache tribe. Besides that, the Jicarilla received a settlement in 1971 for $9.15 million as a means of repayment for lost tribal lands. With only 3,400 current members, the Jicarilla Apache Nation reservation is located in northern New Mexico. The reservation is the size of Rhode Island. The Jicarilla Apache people speak their tribal language, Jicarilla, and English. Their religion is Christianity, but they also have their own myths on how the world came to be. Contrary to other tribes, in their culture, shamans are subordinate and used only for minor crises. The Jicarillas call themselves a people who came from below because they believe they are the sole descendants of the first people to emerge from the underworld. This is the story of their creation. At first, only Black Sky and Earth Women existed, and Hakteen were born from the union of the two. Hakteen are supernaturals, and there is a Hakteen for everything. A Hakteen for each bird, for rocks. They are the personifications of the forces of nature. Black Hakteen was the leader of them all, and the most powerful. The Jicarilla Apache people dwelled under the earth in darkness, and everything was spiritual and holy like a dream, because the people were not real yet, but mere shadows of things. One day, Black Hakteen traced his own figure in the dirt and brought it to life, creating the first man, known as Ancestral Man. Ancestral Man fell asleep and dreamt of a woman, and that woman came to life and became Ancestral Woman. Ancestral Man and Ancestral Woman produced, creating more and more people, and soon the Jicarilla Apache people emerged from the underground using ladders, made from sunbeams created by their holy ones. Black Hakteen, White Hakteen, Holy Boy, and Red Boy were known as the Holy Ones. This is just one of the many myths in the Jicarilla Apache folklore. Based off of these myths, there are a few traditional ceremonies all Jicarillas experience. For the young woman, a puberty ceremony lasting 4 days in order for her to live a long and fruitful life. The ceremony includes dancing, chanting, singing, praying, and healing. For the boys, they must participate in a ceremonial relay race once they reach the age of puberty. Only the unmarried boys can run fast, because once they have sexual contact with a woman, the peak of vitality can never again be reached. The ceremony blesses and helps the boys become men. Although the Jicarilla Apache still take part in traditions, they still live a modern lifestyle. They shop at local markets, live in houses, and go to school. However, crime, unemployment, and drug use is high, but recently more and more have been obtaining degrees and graduating from college. In the future, the education the Jicarillas are pursuing could benefit the tribe and lower the unemployment rate. The Jicarilla Apache Nation is known for persevering and fighting against the odds. Even against neighboring tribes, Spanish settlers, and American troops and government, the Jicarilla Apaches fought, never gave up, and eventually found success. And even through all the struggles, they never lost sight of who they were.